Deanna wanted to replace Jason with you, so you're the new Jason.
Well, I don't know if you
He's working.
I was going to say, I've been listening to the podcast and I know the backstory, of course. And I'm just so proud of you because you have taken a situation that maybe wasn't ideal. It was definitely a blindsided thing. Is it Mike Tyson that said, life is great until it punches you in the face? And I feel like you have turned that around and you have made something meaningful with it. The three of you are working to build something that people can listen to, they can relate with, they hear things in your story. I've been listening to some of the early episodes that are starting to release now out on Apple Podcasts. You want me to hold it?
Oh, yeah, there.
I was just realizing I'm making him hold the mic for me. So I just wanted to share that feedback that, I've shared with a few friends, hey, when they say like, hey, what is Patrick working on? That's one of the things, right? I see he's doing this podcast.
Working?
Is he working hard or hardly working? So I wanted to share that with you, Miss Diana, because I feel like that's the proverbial take the lemons and make the lemonade that you're approaching this. And I feel like you never know the ripple effect of someone listening. That's the interesting thing. My family comes from radio. That's their industry and their business. And it's always interesting that you don't know in that particular type of work you'll get the numbers, right? I'm sure you're seeing like stream numbers and things like that, but it's you don't know really the impact you're having unless someone reaches out. And I think the ratio, unless it's changed, I think the ratio is for every one person that reaches out or gives feedback, there's 1,000 more that won't with audio. That's what it used to be with radio. So I don't know if it's the exact same with podcasts, but you never know who you're going to reach and who's going to be encouraged by taking your story and making it meaningful, continuing to drive the chariot,
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. I think it's, I'm still in that process, when you're in that process, when things happen, when change shifts. And I think a lot of us can I identify with this or can relate to this, is that sometimes you don't know what you're doing, but you just got to keep moving. You just got to keep moving in order to continue existing and moving forward, to see that there is some form of progress. And I believe that during that process, when you find people along the way that can light that inspiration, and which I came across with Patrick and Jason, and he talked about you, and I'm like, definitely we need to bring all those lights to make some dark moments brighter, as human nature, we all go through that. All of us, all human beings go through that. I'm a strong believer in what do you do? Like what comes after and how you do that. And so I know that Patrick talked about some amazing things that you have overcome and what you've dealt with. And, briefly, he didn't want to spoil it. But I'm really excited in having you on board. First, to give another female perspective on a lot of things as women in corporate America, or just women in everyday life, what we go through, our journeys. It's important. So it's important to have that other perspective. And I think we just needed some estrogen on here, more estrogen. I'm like, way too much testosterone.
No, I appreciate that. And thank you for letting me be on today. So I'm definitely going to bring in some more perspective for you, probably.
Yes, we would love that. And, we would love to continue having our featured guests continue to coming on when they can, to provide those insights, nuggets. And I think it's also important because our each person has a certain gift, a skill set that they can bring to the table, and they can reach a certain demographic or an audience type that can relate to them. Not everyone's going to relate to Diana. Not everyone's going to relate to Patrick or Jason, but they may relate to you and what you have to say, your message. And so that's why I think it's really important, so that we can have a dynamic, diverse voices on here, so that we can reach as many people as possible. So with that, I'm going to have Patrick do a nice little intro, and then we're going to have you.
We'll get Jason to throw some music on here because Alexa was acting weird and wouldn't play music. Alexa's on crack. Alrighty. So yes, All right, Jason. So this is your countdown where to start editing, or you could even put in the other candor stuff that we just had. So 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, animals and pets of all sorts. That's just weird. Never mind. So, we are now jumping into Life in the In-Between, the podcast where you, the listener at home, have the opportunity to win a brand new Peloton bike sponsored by Target, because they're going broke and they're needing anything they can right now to get people to go buy stuff. So, on today's program, we have a very special guest, an amazing guest. And I guess the best way to start this off is today's program has been brought to you by the letter E. E for experience, E for expert, E for estrogen, and E because everything she's going to share with you is going to make you go, yee. So we have Rachel, my wife, my woman. You know, this is a patriarchal society, so my woman. Okay, there's 2 women here, so we have more estrogen in the house than testosterone. Jason is out battling on behalf of Jedi all across the world. And so we are joined today by an industry leader. So I'll tell a little bit about Rachel before we get into the mushy gushy. So Rachel came from corporate America, overseeing about 200 employees, frontline workers, management for a Fortune 100 company. We won't say the name, nationwide. And so she ventured from there, took over territory with Travelers Insurance before I came in, and I was just the ADHD, like, hey, what are you doing? Why you gotta work so much? Why don't you come play with me? Let's go do something. Let's go out and get drinks or something. Come on, let's get coffee. And so then we got married, and Rachel became a go-to expert in the world of corporate relations, empowerment, employee engagement, I would say. Yeah. So she's been a keynote speaker for national and international conferences. And then, yeah, the Comfort Keepers was international. And then we had a baby who has taken over our world. And he's magical. Just say he's magical.
That was kind of a clever opening. I like the E thing. Did that just come right off of your brain?
When I was going to the bathroom.
Oh, okay. We won't go into his creative process on that one. Thank you for the introduction. You make me sound a little bit cooler than I am. Just a little bit better than I actually am. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So, I'm gonna start off with, I know that Patrick gave you a wonderful introduction. Is there something Patrick left out that you would like to kind of mention in there in your introduction?
I would say probably all the struggles along the way. That is part of, I guess, everybody's story, really. And there's different levels of comfort, right, with sharing the struggles along the way. But it definitely hasn't been easy. And I think there's been a lot of transition in my life. That's almost a key thing. A key theme as I look back through is like managing transitions, right? And I feel like as women, I know we're kind of talking about the woman's perspective today on the podcast. And that's the thing. We go through a lot of transitions as women that we think we're ready for, but are we really? So that's one thing that I would throw out there right from the beginning, not to go too deep right off the jump, but yeah, struggles along the way. Corporate America is a fun place to be. And Diana, you know a lot about this, but it can also be challenging as a woman. I was just reading a stat because I've kind of continued to do some surviving the workplace, if you will, on little TikTok videos and things like that. Because I think there's something to that women are still, we've progressed. There's a lot of progress, but at the same time, only 29% of C-suite positions are held by women, even still right now in 2025. And it's even less for women of color. So I was kind of discouraged to see that statistic because I was doing a video and I thought, wow, I guess I thought we were a little bit further along, and that's not to discount the progress that those have gone before me. A lot has happened, but there's definitely some challenges I think that are unique to women in leadership and in corporate America that, we learn as we go. So that's one thing I would throw out there. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, continue.
No. I was gonna bounce it back to you, Diane. I was gonna say, do you agree, or what do you think about that?
No, I do. I absolutely do agree that. It's surprising and it's really saddening to know that the numbers aren't higher. That we have more women in the C-suite positions. And I have a couple of thoughts and ideas of why. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I feel, and at least this is my personal experience, and maybe yours it may be similar or different, but I have felt that I know that we talk about this woman empowerment, that we should empower women, but I think that at a certain point when women get to that seat, they're afraid that they're going to lose their seat. So they don't really pull more women up and kind of encourage and it's like a fear, of that someone may outcompete them. And I think that's quite saddening. I mean, and I could be wrong. It could be based on my personal experience and just on that. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on your journey?
I totally agree with you on that. There's even this piece of entertainment where we find, I'm going to include myself in this, I'm going to hold myself accountable. We find it funny or humorous, the bad woman boss trope. So for example, one of my all-time favorite movies is The Devil Wears Prada, right? I love Anne Hathaway. I love Emily Blunt, Meryl Streep. They're all so fantastic. So I'm not going to stop loving that movie, but I do feel like it's outdated in the sense that, and I know some people say, well, that's loosely based on a real character, but even still, there's this idea being presented that, oh, it's so funny that this person is a woman, she's in charge, and she's just brutal. She's terrible. She doesn't have, she doesn't have empathy. And there's even a key part in that scene where Anne Hathaway's character says, if Miranda Priestley were a man, no one would say anything about her except how good she is at her job. So that's kind of a key piece because that's a trope, right, that we see in entertainment. So I went out on my little, I love my little AI bot, and I know there's some concern out there about using AI and is it environmentally safe and all that kind of stuff. So, but that notwithstanding, I do use it sometimes. And I said, hey, can you give me some more examples? Because I know I've seen a show around called Younger that has that same idea, right? Like one of the main ladies is kind of like really overbearing. And so where are they getting this, right? Is this art imitating life? Or are we perpetuating this idea that a woman in leadership is not going to be as effective as a man, either because she's overly emotional, she can't control, she's going to cry in the workplace, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, she's going to get too involved in the interpersonal side of things. Or you have the opposite where they say, here's all this masculine energy that's coming forth. And so it's almost like women can't win in that space. So I feel like that sounds silly because it's like, well, that's the entertainment side of things. But I feel like that's one of the things that continues to foster this idea that women are not going to be as effective. And I've had people throughout my career say, I actually really do prefer to have a man as a boss. And there's nothing right. Again, I'm not out here to bash our men. There's a lot of really great men leaders. I've worked under some of them and am thankful for them. But since we are kind of focused on this today on the podcast, I think it's worth saying women have shown in other developed countries to really be actually some of the most effective leaders. So I think we need to be careful, right, about perpetuating this ideal, if you will, that like, oh, women are not going to be effective, and be careful because if you work for this person, you're going to be crying all the time, or you're going to be stressed all the time. She's going to be micromanaging you all the time. You see? So I feel like that is one thing that I could work on because I do like those shows. Like I like it, but I can like it and two things can be true. I can also kind of call out that accountability of let's change that, let's change how we're perceiving women.
I love that. That's a really great response. Thank you. Thank you for that.
There too, like, so it's coming to mind that it could also be this huge systemic thing where there are systems in place that keep women from getting to the top of the chain because they're supposed to be at home with babies, serving the man, or as the Bible says, be the helpmate. And so many times that becomes the identity. It's like, oh, and not knocking it, I'm here to help my husband with his mission. But, in this progressive world that we live in, there's, Rachel has a heart for those who are underrepresented. Rachel has a heart to her own goals. And when we met, it wasn't like she was just waiting around like, oh, I can't wait to find a guy so I can serve his mission. It was, no, she was out there doing stuff. And that's what got on my radar. I'm like, this girl she's like Ellen Ripley from Aliens. Like she's out there doing stuff, not shooting people, but she was the all-star. And so that was one thing. They're like, okay, yeah. And, we had met 20 years prior at Bible college, where Texas Bridal Institute, as they called it, because everybody thought it was where you go meet your mate.
You get your MRS degree, right? That one comes with a ring.
And and I think I'll right on. And one interesting factoid to throw out there, I learned this in college at ACC. Whoop, whoop, go Austin Community College. It was this weird statistic that we studied that when a lot of South American countries were going through the revolutions and civil wars, that a lot of the female soldiers, when they were captured and tortured, they were able to hold out more than the men, because and it gets kind of graphic here, but a lot of times what happened during the torture process, a lot of people would die, but the enemy soldiers would hit the chest of the passed away person and resuscitate them just so they could torture them more. And it was during these situations that most of the men cracked, the male soldiers, but the women, just because of that higher, I don't know, tolerance, commitment, whatever you want to call it, but they were the ones that held out. They were the ones that were able to physiologically, mentally hold out where a lot of men kind of fell. Not knocking that, a lot of men didn't like stand up, but just something to throw out there for listeners who might think, well, women are the weaker species. Women are it's like, nah, in what regard? In what regard? Take that.
I appreciate that. And Diana, I am just charging over you here, so I know you had something to say. Thanks for sharing that real life example, and it reminds me of the importance of letting women make the decisions that are in their heart to make. So what I mean by that is, you said, I'm not knocking people that want to, how did you word it, serve a man's mission or work in the home. And interestingly enough, I do have some side things that I do, but for the most part, I kind of am a stay-at-home mom now, which has been a huge transition for me.
I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah, we're kind of both stay-at-home parents, but we also do our entrepreneurship things on the side. Anyway, it reminds me of that story, and you might know the story already, Diana, about Ask the Turtle. And it's an anecdote where this, hiker is out near and hiking this trail, and they go up by the road. They've come up from the river and they go up by the road, and they see this turtle just kind of struggling and straining, getting there right to the edge of the road as if they're going to cross. And at first they think, oh no, what is the turtle doing up here? We got to go take them back down to the water where they belong. Let me go. They must be lost. They must be tired. They must be hot. Let me go plop them back into the water. And as the story goes, you say, well, what if the turtle wanted to be there, though? What if the turtle made that effort for a reason? We don't know why. What if they want to cross the road and come up to this side of things? The key is ask the turtle. So I always think about that when it comes to women's roles, because staying in the home, working in a sacred space with your children, or homemaking is a sacred work. I truly believe that it's unseen. If that's a desire in your heart, then I think that should be honored. The same way that some women feel a desire in their heart to achieve, and they may even be naturally gifted more in the workplace for corporate America or as an entrepreneur. And I think where the trouble comes in is, number one, when we don't ask, right? We don't ask or honor those decisions. We assume where someone should be. You should be down by the water, right? And then number two is when women are doing all of the unseen labor, of both. So what I think what we're seeing is we see women that are having to do everything, right? And this is not all men. It's certainly not the case with me. I was just venting to my brother, is a good friend of mine. I was just venting to him yesterday. He's almost 10 years younger than me, but he's an entrepreneur. And I was telling him, here's all the reasons I'm tired. I'm doing all these things. I was like, but I have to like thank the good Lord in heaven that I have a man that like pulls his weight in the home, because I see on these online forums, and I know online forums can be, you got to be careful because people can really get into doing a lot of complaining on there, but it's really eye-opening how many women say, like, I work full-time, I do all the cooking, I do all the cleaning, I do all the, they call it unseen labor, right? Where it's like, the birthday party's coming up, we need a gift for that. And then my child is outgrowing size 3T, so we need all the pants in the room to be 4T, and the laundry's piling up over there. And then, oh, we broke a dish this morning, so now we don't have a cup, and we need that cup because he's not going to go to sleep if he doesn't have a special drink that he likes in the evening. And there's all this unseen labor that goes on. And this happens, I think, for all women, but some of us are fortunate enough to have someone that is willing to help with those logistics. So I just want to say to our awesome men that are listening, I think that's another place where the issue comes in, is women can't be expected to do everything, though. Right? So if you have someone that is gifted, I'm thinking of a friend of mine, a very good friend in San Antonio. She's launching, I know, just in case she's listening, Janelle Flowers. She is launching a music festival in San Antonio. It's going in tandem with Fiesta. And it's this huge thing. And her husband has been a part of it too, but I know she's kind of the mastermind doing it. And she even did a post last night on social media. She's like, listen, Saturday is a big deal for me. This is my first ticketed music festival. Well, she's also a mother of 3 girls, and one of them is only 3 years old. And so I remember her husband saying, I had to come to a place where I recognized Janelle has giftings that require me to take things off of her plate so that she can excel in those giftings. And I thought, aha, see, that's insightful. That's evolving. And he's I don't know if I want to call him a traditional man, but he's raised in all the mentalities that we've heard, right? Yeah, I feel like that was an evolved thing for him to say. We're just like talking about our friends, but in a good way here, in a good way. So I want to put that out there, right? Because I feel like for women, like we can't be expected to do everything. And the thing about women is we're tough as nails. Exactly that example you were given. We're resilient. Another thing is the neurodivergent community. There's this statistic that a friend of mine sent that with, if you have, like, let's say you have a child that's neurodivergent, or you have, family members, that's one thing that they have seen that is the most resilient in the situation. Like, the stress is high, the sense of like PTSD almost is high, overstimulation. But when they look at resilience from the mothers, that is like one common factor in neurodivergent families. So there's things like that. I'm reading these statistics all the time, and I'm like, man, women, like, we're baddies, like we take the hits and we keep going. And that's the thing, is we're going to figure it out. And there's one thing I can say about my mother, my grandmothers, and that whole generation. They call them the silent generation for a reason, right? Because they were not one to say, like, I'm struggling, or, I don't know what dinner is tonight. I'm spoiled in a way, because I can say that. I can tell my husband, like, hey, thanks for doing dinner, because I don't have bandwidth. And if you want, I can do it. And we're going to get a pizza and not be in line with our health goals for the evening. Well, we gotta take some things off of women's plates. That's the point I'm trying to make. We have to be supportive. Women have so historically been in that role of support that sometimes we forget there's things that have to be taken off of their plate so that their gifts can excel in other places. And absolutely, women have been gifted in other places. So, all right, I'm going to let you talk. You talk, Diana. I'm doing too much.
I love what you said. And I think the only thing that I would just add to what you said, and you speak so truth. I mean, the only thing is, for the women that don't know how to ask for help, because there are some women out there that just don't know. And I'm going to include myself. I'm in that it's very difficult for me to ask for help. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to handle it. If they can't do it, I will do it. And I think it's really, we need to change that mindset, because what winds up happening is we find ourselves getting burnt out. We find ourselves kind of lashing out to our loved ones. We find ourselves in just doing some unhealthy behaviors, whether it be overeating, whether it be just kind of using some, looking ourselves in a different light. But I think it's really important for us to just actually recognize when we need the help and ask for it. So, but everything that you said is so true. And that's the silent generation, man, those women were strong. They were tough as nails. I think back and they did everything. And it's like, wow, how did you manage? And it's like what you just said, if I don't feel like cooking, okay, let's just order out. Let's do takeout or something. And it's, so we're very privileged in that way, in that sense. But yes, but thank you for talking about that. I know, Patrick, you wanted to say something?
I'm over here like, okay, let me see. This is why it's so cool with Rachel, because she has so much. Like I think you do better at podcasting than I do. So you just have even one of the bureaus we're in, it was always pitched that like, the expert and then the hype man. Like I come in as the hype man, and so it was kind of that energy. But I just wanted to also speak to the men out there, because a lot of times we may not see this. We may not see the struggle. We may not see everything that's going on. And I've reduced my business probably about 90%. For those of you just joining us, so I'm a speaker, so I travel. But when our little one came along, it was that shift. Things shifted. But I was very fortunate to be raised in a household where my dad cooked dinner. My dad would take us out, and he had a full-time job, military guy. And so it was kind of modeled for me. It was that, okay, I see my dad cooking, and I learned to cook at a probably elementary level age. My brother, same. We all love to cook. And so being able to cook, being able to help out, being able to, do laundry while Rachel's resting the little one, because he's got my energy times 100 and very independent. And so I'll say that for those guys out there who have not been home for 24 hours with your little one, make that a goal this year. If you could take a day off and just have like 12 hours around the house with your little one, dear heavens almighty, it's a game changer, because you can explain something or you can experience it. And because I've been in this experience now of, and Rachel and I we tag team a lot, but we're always like, how do people with multiple kids do this around the same age? If it's an older kid who can watch the little one, sure. But how do they do this? And we have my parents' help. We have wonderful babysitters who come and then get married and leave us. And so we have to find another one. But it is always understanding that, like, I get it, to the ladies out there who are home all by themselves. I get it. Like, the laundry piles up, the dishes pile up, the dinner, who cares? You just want time to relax and watch Miranda Priestley or something. And so, yeah, that's the goal. Dudes out there, at least once this year, try to take a day off where you can kind of step back and step into the life that the ladies who are overseeing the little ones have, because it's a lot. And I want to throw this story out there because it kind of shows the shift that happened with Rachel. So we were doing not a joint smoking, but a joint keynote presentation where we tag team a keynote for a conference. And I think it was the Movers, EDC Moving. They were a huge moving company, and they had booked us up in Round Rock. So we had our little one with us. We'll make it work. My mom's going to drive up there the morning of and come take care of him. And like everything that could go wrong that morning, like I woke up the morning of the event and I'm like, wait, I forgot my pants. I didn't have any dress pants. So I had to run off to Walmart to find pants. And then my mom gets there, takes the little one, Sebi, takes him. We go down, meet the clients, start, doing our magic. The keynote kicks off. And so I would kind of get everybody hyped up. Then Rachel would come talk about, your true inner power is who is on the inside of you. And I'm Rachel. And so we're going. And then we start getting these text messages from my mom. He's not settling down. He's crying. About 2 minutes later, he's having a hysterical meltdown. And you could literally see it when Rachel looked at her phone, and all of a sudden she was not the expert getting hired. It was mommy mode, mommy mode. And she couldn't concentrate. So in the middle of the keynote, I was like, you go take care of him. You go and I'll cover for you and, hype everybody up again. But that was kind of the shift where we saw like, she had stepped down from corporate America to take care of the little one. But now she was kind of having to step back from even the speaking world because, it was a lot. And given our little one has a lot of energy, he's been with us 24/7 since he was born pretty much. And so it was another decision, and I'll let Rachel even talk about that, just that decision from corporate to speaker to guru to Super Saiyan to mommy mode, which is the ultimate Super Saiyan.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's that balancing of all the roles, right? And I have to say to my baby, because he might grow up someday and listen to this,
I love you, Sippy.
he is amazing, and there has been no bigger honor of my life. He's a dream come true.
You're the best thing
So
ever.
any of the things that we have dealt with in the transition, like that's part of the magic, right? So I just have to say that. Also, yes, my father-in-law is amazing.
We were older too. We were in our 40s when we had our little ones.
And yes, and we've talked about that. We didn't even have him until we were 40 and 41. So that, in other words, we were used to doing life on our own before we got together and then, together. So I think it was a bigger transition than some people might experience. But I have a question for you, Miss Diana. And it's going back a little bit to what you were saying earlier. First, are you familiar with Enneagram or maybe another personality tool? And then kind of a part two to that question. When you say women struggle to ask for help, I completely 1000% agree. Do you feel like that is more of a temperament thing, or do you feel like we're kind of socialized from early on to be that way?
So I do believe that we are socialized. I think from early on, we are taught. That's my personal belief. I think that at least I was raised and conditioned to believe that you wait your turn. You don't ask for help. My grandmother, and my mother kind of instilled that in my very early on, that you have to go through life and only depend on yourself, kind of thing. Don't ask for help. Don't count on anyone. You have to maneuver through life in that way. And if you do get that help, that's the extra. But be prepared and just be strong enough, because there were women that also had to do it by themselves. So I think it's more of an upbringing kind of thing, something that started early on. And so it's that mindset. So I do believe that. I know there was a first part of the question, and I'm so sorry. What was that first part?
No, I completely agree with you. First of all, do you are you acquainted with the Enneagram or maybe DISC or Myers-Briggs?
Yes. Yes.
So I don't know. I'm interested to hear what yours is, but mine does tend to be what is like, quote, people can't see me. I'm doing air quotes. Typically a female type of temperament, which is like the type 2 in Enneagram. That's the type, they call it the helper. And they say everyone dislikes their own type, right? Because you can see the flaws of it. And every type has their strengths and their things that they need to grow in. But that is one of the things that I have had to ask myself is this really my real personality? And even if it is, I think that I can increase in that skill. And it's been a process. And that is one thing Patrick could tell you. I like to compare it to, I feel like this is kind of an inadequate metaphor, but when your car battery goes out and you have someone jump, you put the cables on, and when it first comes on, it's like it revs up really, really like too strong. And you're like, okay, I need to get back into a regular rhythm here. That's how I feel sometimes when I'm practicing a new skill, like asking for help or identifying my own needs, because I'm so used to suppressing those. I'm so used to thinking of what everyone else needs. This was even before motherhood for me. So I can imagine there's women that you don't have to be a mother to be someone that looks out for everybody else other than yourself. That's why self-care is such a thing. That's a huge industry right now, because as women, we actually have to be told, right? our awesome men, they have most awesome men. I'm not going to say everyone. A lot of them don't have any issues saying like, hey, like I need to go hit the golf course today, or I need to do this. I need to decompress. And I feel like a lot of times the culture is set up to accommodate them for that. And then as women, we have to be told, remember your self-care, right? I'm out on the Finch app. If you guys know about the Finch app, it's where you go and you take care of a little bird, and the bird's not going to be taken care of unless you take care of yourself, is how they have it set up. And I thought, those genius people that created that app, they know exactly how we're wired as women, because we're not going to let a little creature, even if it's digital, we're not going to let a little creature die because we didn't take care of ourselves, right? So I feel like that's a thing. And when I'm first learning, I would say, how many years? Maybe I want to say 10 years that I've been trying to identify my own needs and ask for help. And sometimes it comes off like that car, like, whoa, like that was way too strong. Whoa, that boundary was really heavy, right? It's a practice. It's a skill that's new, right? I got to get on the road and kind of hum at a rhythm where it's okay. Now I'm used to asking for help. But I just wanted to throw that out there and see what you think about that, because how do we know if it hasn't been modeled for us? We're having to pioneer that. We're having to pioneer it for the new generation of how do you serve other people. That's okay. That's a sacred role. But how do you also not forget yourself and not disappear into your roles? And hey, I'm still working on it 1000%. There's this one day that I don't know if you remember when we lived in the Austin house. And it was this really, benign request from Patrick. He was like, hey, I think we're doing lunch with so-and-so today. And I was like, I cannot do one more thing. And I melted down. I remember I was on the staircase and I sat down and I just started crying. And I reached out to my sister-in-law and I was like, I don't even know why I'm crying. And she said, that's a thing. People with your personality or people that struggle to ask for help. She's like, that's a thing, is you don't realize or recognize your own needs until you're in this place of meltdown. So you have to kind of learn to do that more proactively. So
that is so true. Yes. And so, yes, on the test, I actually rate, there's one, I have done two. I know where I used to work at my former company, we did one and I scored a blue. It's basically a person that's a servant leader, helping others, putting other needs first. What type of, work fields they recommend, like social service, psychologists, all these nurse, they recommend you being in that kind of environment where you're helping others, you're serving others. And that's my personality type. And so I could definitely relate to what you're saying. And when you're having those meltdown moments and people just don't realize, I'm cool as a cucumber, I'm all together smiling. And then suddenly, blah, I break down and what just happened? But it's all the issues, everything compounded. It just feels so overwhelming. And my body at that point is just saying, enough is enough. You need to ask for help. You've taken too much, on your plate. And so it comes out through that emotional outburst, and so that's very important, because in realizing that and identifying that before that happens, because sometimes the people that we work around that may not be so empathetic and understanding, because they're so used to seeing you in a certain way. When they see you in a different way, they're like, oh my God, you're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. What happened here? Your personality just shifted. And so they don't realize it just kind of changed. Well, it's only because of so much has been added, so much has been done, so much. And that finally, we break, or I break. I break at that moment. But I wanted to, and that was a great question that you asked, Rachel. I did want to ask you one question, just kind of backpedal a little bit, because Patrick was talking about during that transitional time. And I know there are a lot of women right now out there that they're going to be listening to this and feeling that guilt, that transition of work and being a mom. When you're getting that phone call, your child, and then, of course, your instinct kicks in. I need to be there with my child. But then later on, feel guilty with those emotions because you had to leave something. Or sometimes some women choose to say, you need to handle that and then deal with, because I need to put career first and they kind of put their child second. So they're dealing with all these emotions. Can you, can you explain how you were able to maneuver that, or if you're still maneuvering that? What are some techniques that you use to deal with those feelings and those emotions?
Good question, Deanna.
That is a good question. And I want to hear from you on that too after this.
Okay.
I am going to answer your question with a story. When my son was born, I went through this, oh no, it's time to go back to work for maternity leave. It's too short in the USA, by the way. I know we're probably not going to get political on here, but I don't think the 6 to even it's 8 weeks. You know, if you have C-section, it's 6 weeks. Some people go back even sooner than that. Your hormones are going crazy. Your child is absolutely dependent on you. So that's kind of a personal soapbox that I would really like to see that change to make things easier on mothers. But anyway, I was finishing with, maternity leave. I was thinking, oh no, how am I going to balance this? And I was really fortunate to have a fully remote job at the time. Of course, he was born, my pregnancy happened at the end of 2020 and then he was born in 2021. So the pandemic was still pretty hot and heavy during that time. So most people were working at home, but I got to thinking like, well, maybe I'll just kind of manage both, and I'll be okay. And so I started dealing with this, exactly what you were just saying. At work, I'm distracted because I'm thinking about him. And I was fortunate to have, my in-laws did some helping, and then I had my husband, but it's not the same, right? Because he doesn't respond the same unless it's like actually me as his mom, especially in those early days, And then I was trying to do like a nursing journey with him, and that was challenging. And so my mind would be distracted at work. Well, then, okay, so I'll log off of work, or maybe I'll take the day off early, and then I'm with him, and then I'm having a hard time being present because I'm feeling guilty about what's not happening at work, right? So this is the dichotomy. And I reached out to this friend. I had this friend at work at the time, and she had 2 kids of her own. Now they were, school age. I think they were like 10 and 8 at the time. And I said, her name's Chris, and she's amazing. I was like, hey, Chris, when does this get better, where you start feeling more present in being with your child, and then being at work, you can kind of, compartmentalize a little bit. And she said, it does not get better. She's like, you're not going to get over that. It doesn't get better. You're always going to want to be both places. So that's how I'm going to answer your question, because I didn't ever figure it out, and I still haven't figured it totally out. Now, granted, I'm more with him than I am in as far as like in a corporate schedule now. But I do have other things, like, for example, right now this week out on a certain social platform, they're doing brand awareness, and I have some client work that is requiring me to do 2 hours of work every day that is on a time, and we're all kind of scrambling, right? So I'm still experiencing it on small levels, but I haven't figured it out. As far as grounding techniques, I love that you have asked that, because that has been one of the number one things that I have been, I don't want to say researching, because if researching means you get on social and watch other women talk about it, that's the kind of research that I'm doing. And I'm going to throw a few things out there, and some of them may sound woo-woo, some of them may sound hokey, but if it works, the way I see it is like, if people are having success with this, some things are showing scientific backing. Sometimes maybe it's the placebo effect, but if it works for you, then maybe it's worth looking into. One of them is EFT tapping. I don't know if you know about that, or who knows about it, but that's where you have certain areas on your head and your arm that you tap, and you kind of say, even though I'm feeling anxious and distracted right now and not as present as I want to be, I still love and accept myself. Right. And you do some tapping. And that's one thing that I'm very new to that. I am no expert, but there's a girl out on socials that swears that changed her life. Right. And she has a book coming out that's called You Are the Magic. I wish I knew her name so I could call her out and give her kudos, but I don't remember her name right offhand. Maybe we can put it in the show notes later. But basically you're saying, even though I'm struggling with wanting sweets right now as a coping mechanism, because come on, somebody, that's been one of mine, right? That's been a struggle. We're talking about struggles today. Even though I want that chocolate cake as a way to cope, I still love and accept myself. And then you present yourself with a solution. I'm learning. I'm growing. It's okay to make mistakes, right? I'm a whole person. So that's one thing I've been trying. A lot of people talk about journaling. Journaling was a little hard for me with managing my child, but I do love journaling in general. I do think that's a way to kind of process things. And then going through meditation. Now, meditation is another thing that I was brand new to, but I started doing it at night, right as I was going to sleep. There's actually multiple podcasts that people can listen to, but there's one lady that I like in particular that goes through like a meditative process where you scan the whole body and you let your responsibilities go. She's big on that. Like, at least for a moment in time, lay down the responsibilities of everyone else, ladies, and focus on your body. Remember, you were talking about that. Your body started breaking down at work, and you said it was almost like Heckle and what's the
Dr.
name?
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yes.
And Patrick laughed a little too hard. He's like, I've seen that happen before. I mean, he didn't say that, but I could tell it was in his head, right? There's that popular book, The Body Keeps Score. And that's because the body does know what we're carrying. And the body, instead of us suppressing, this is something else I'm learning to do. Instead of saying, no, I shouldn't feel like that. No, I shouldn't feel emotional. No, it doesn't matter. The body and the emotions are sending you signals for a reason, right? And so this, like, I carry tension right here in my upper shoulders, right? That's one thing. Like, when my shoulders start getting tense, that's my body saying, hey, you need to do something. You need to ground yourself. You need to, even if it's small, right? So that's another thing, is just remembering if you're getting like daily headaches, that's another thing that started happening. Daily headaches or tension in your body, or like something feels uneasy. You know how they say, like, check the energy, like when you're around certain people and you start feeling unsafe, right? Your body is sending you signals. So how do we go about embracing that and not shaming it, but kind of, it's, the spiritual community would say embracing your shadow side, or letting your inner child feel what they need to feel. And maybe you don't put them in the driver's seat necessarily, but it's okay to have them right there next to you and say, we're in this together. We're going through this together. I've got you. I'm going to listen to you. But I want to hear from you, because you have some awesome things around that. I just know how to ground yourself, how to listen to your own needs. And then what would you say to your younger self that maybe didn't know how to do that?
Wow. So my younger self when I had my children, I was very young. I was quite young. I had my oldest when I was 17. I was basically at 17, I was pregnant and a kid and just maneuvering through the world. So at the time, in getting back to that feeling where I went the complete opposite, where all my energy, my identity became my children. I was so invested into my children, because for me at the time, being a young mom, my marriage was falling apart. I had to kind of like unconsciously and maybe consciously to prove to others that my children were going to succeed regardless of coming from a broken home. So my identity was the mom, and I lost myself. And so my work at the time, I didn't find my career, start my career path until after I graduated from college. I went to college with my oldest. We were going to college together.
That is so cool, by the way.
Thank you. So during that time, my coping at the time, what I was dealing with, how I was coping it as a young mom, I dealt with music, listening to music. I also just focused all my energy on them and just kind of really letting them know that you have to, no matter what, your education is what's going to make you succeed. So I was the mom, and I realized, and I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to share a story. I realized when I lost my complete identity was when my sister, one of my sisters, my oldest sister, Alexita, she tells me she had this Elton John and Billy Joel concert ticket, and she said, I want to take you. So I had my grandmother watch my son, and I went. And this was the first telling sign at the moment where I realized where I was losing my identity. I was in this concert, and everyone was having a good time. I mean, they were cutting loose, they were dancing, and I didn't know how to act. I was like, how do I act? What do I, And and I think a lot of women can relate to this when they completely throw themselves into their children and they lose that identity, their self and everything. And then it was it's really sad to say this, but it was getting the permission from my two boys and my husband to finally say, be yourself, be you. It's okay to find yourself.
Aww.
And I was like, wow, I mean, like, I can be me. Like, I can, so I started doing my journey. Like, I was like, oh, okay, let me start discovering what I like to do. Painting was an aspect. I started volunteering more. And I found that my passion was giving to others and becoming a CASA advocate. And that was my form of therapy. That was my healing. Giving a voice, this is especially for being a CASA advocate. I'm sorry.
Let the tears out.
It's because I didn't have the voice for myself many years. It was very, very important to have a voice for these children. Through that process of interacting with attorneys, with judges, working with women that were so empowered, young women that already had their education, their law degrees, CPS workers, and I've seen these women, how they were so strong and they spoke out. I was at that moment, I was like, wow, I love doing this. And so my journey was being the voice for these children that didn't have a voice. So that was kind of my journey of my form of therapy, painting, kind of working with them, writing, journaling. And then ultimately just saying, oh, I'm discovering myself, which is a beautiful thing. I wish I would have done it sooner.
Yeah.
So good. So good. And I want to throw this in there as you said something about women kind of losing their identity with the kids. And I think when you look at the opposite of that, a lot of guys find their identity through their work. And they find their worth through their work, and they become the job title. They become the money figure. And I think on both of those extremes, there's that balance. And one thing we had shared in a few episodes before was mental health begins with me. And it feels like it's like we have to fight for the mental health. And I think both of you are sharing so much, and I'm just so happy that y'all have so much to give and share with everyone. And it comes down to that. I can't even think, like my brain just popped. That there's a lot on the plate, and you don't need to feel sorry for taking care of yourself. And a lot of
exactly.
And I talk from a guy's perspective, because a lot of the time it feels like, well, I don't need to ask to do stuff. I just go do it. It's just okay. Adios.
Yeah.
And peace out. Where a lot of times with more of the energy of like, I need to serve others and help others, and it's about them first. It's like, okay, I need to go take care of myself, but they still need me. And it's not just about having a kid. For people who are very involved in their churches, there's always more work that needs to be done. CASA, there's always more work that needs to be done. So where do you set that boundary? When you start burning out, when my eye starts to twitch, that's when I'm like, okay, I need to go ride my bike in Austin and probably get a donut. It's your body gives you these cues, and we've learned as a society to quit listening to our body. We've learned to, nope, I can power through this. Just give me my Celsius energy drink or Monster energy drink, and I can power through this, instead of taking time to unplug. And I try to find the source for this. It was like a Native American or African proverb, but it said there's times where we need to slow down to let our spirit catch up to our body. And that's one thing, in America, progress, go make more. If you're at home being a bum, you don't deserve anything. But no, take time to let your spirit catch up to your body, because as mothers, as business owners, as podcasters, as friends, as spouses, you're always getting pulled. And don't forget to like, oh, give me this little piece for myself. Let me get this little piece for myself. And so mental health begins with me. Make it a t-shirt.
Yeah, I like that.
Copyrighted me.
I know we're almost out of time. I just want to honor you, Diana, and what you shared. It's, storytelling. That's why they say storytelling is the most powerful form of communication, because your story about being at that event and feeling like you didn't know what to do, to just be in the joy of the moment, that's going to stick with me. But I just want to honor you and thank you for the ways that you have served. And I do think that when you're in the right sense of service where you're aligned and it's something that you want to do and you're good at doing, like, for example, being a spokesman for these children. We love CASA as well. I had a history with Big Brothers Big Sisters as well, which is a little bit different but kind of similar. And there is something so fulfilling about that. But I just want to say, the way that you said, well, I didn't always have a voice, so I want to be the voice for them. That's the way you take that, right? That struggle, and you turn it into a strength. Yeah, there you go.
ADHD.
I know. Yeah, well, I was going to say you took the mess and turned it into a message, and then I thought sounds like church, but I just wanted to honor your story and hold space for that, because that's really beautiful. And I feel like, that's the thing. A lot of times we say, well, don't take anything else on, ladies, but it's like, well, take something on if it is aligned with your strengths and it's something that you feel passionate about, because you could be there to really help those kids. And that's an organization that needs help right now too. So I want to throw that out there. And yes, I love the t-shirt idea. That's a good idea with the mental health. I don't know.
Great idea.
Oh, we'll keep going, and we'll let Jason edit this. Jason's not here, so we'll give you lots of work to edit and cut through and get some snippets, because this is so good. Y'all have so many good nuggets. Y'all have all the nuggets, and I know all the ladies out there. I hope y'all are taking notes. We're having church up in here, and I think we'll definitely have to
get Rachel back on.
Yeah,
we need to get her back on. I mean, this is not enough time to really This is an issue that women face, and there's so many compartments, so many things. And so, yeah, definitely. We love to have a
ladies only podcast with your mimosas and Taylor Swift and stuff.
I was telling him I have a recommendation for someone for y'all to have on. I haven't asked her yet, but I have a friend that is really just killing it out there in the space of being a spokesman for women. And she's dealt with some really tough things. It might be an episode to do a trigger warning on, but she has taken a story and made something beautiful out of it. And she's a single mother, and she's making it happen. She's awesome. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot to be said from women and their stories.
Yes.
I think that should be one of our series that we do, Trigger Happy, where we just talk about all the stuff that triggers people. Because I know Jason and you and I wanted to discuss about abuse and stuff, and go down that path. So we could have the trigger episodes where we'll have to have a psychologist on hand. Get my
I think. I love that. I think that's a great idea. Rachel, thank you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your empowerment words. I mean, thank you so much for being on here. I definitely want you back on. We
barely scratched the surface. This was just going through the first little epidermal layer. Yeah, got to get to the meaty. I always joke with her. I'm like, well, it's because your head is so big and just dunk flops everywhere. But yeah, I mean, there's so much, and I think for all the ladies out there listening, and even the guys, we want your questions, we want your input. What spoke to you in this episode? What are questions you might have for Rachel? From transitions, from workplace relationships, to weaning your child off of 20 hours of TV. or something.
One day, and then the other 4 hours they were asleep.
Yeah, he didn't sleep, and he had donuts. So yeah, he had donuts, and people noticed his energy yesterday. So it's a lot.
Or if they're looking for a speaker, because you do speak, you do speaking engagements, correct?
I do. I've only been doing one or two at a time, for the whole year. But I think, as time goes on and my son becomes more independent, I might get more into that, because I heard another speaker one time say, what your strengths are by what gives you energy. And I always remember that, because I thought, I don't necessarily think of myself as, I'm a great speaker, but I do get energy and that sense of that was fun, when I do it. So maybe that's something I'll explore again.
Great.
Thank you,
So where do
Diana.
they reach you? Where can they reach you? Someone wants to like book you.
That's a good question because I I feel like I need to streamline because I have a website, but it's for like content creation, so that's different. But I mean, there's always socials, right? And I go by it's _ Rach Perez. It was funny. My husband was like, "Why do you go by Rach on there?" And I'm like, "It's supposed to be Rach, but it's only because Rachel Perez is such a common name, so they don't have that one available." But yeah, it's Rach Perez. Thank you so much.
And if you Google, there are some videos out there if y'all want to go stalker. Yeah, if you just Google high impact programs, she'll pop up. That was our branded company name when we were doing presentations together. And then she kind of took that name for her content creation when she was doing her wellness and corporate stuff. But if you just Google high impact programs, I think it'll pop up on some third party websites. I think one of our bureaus that represents us. So you'll see videos of Rachel up there. And then if you really want to make a difference, it begins with you. And you make a change and si se puede. And
I have two short speaking clips out on my TikTok. But there's a bunch of other like stuff that, on that TikTok page. But the pin, how you can pin your top 3 videos? I do have some speaking reels on the top. But that's just if anybody wants to dig.
Y'all better book her. Because I don't want to speak anymore. So I'm taking a sabbatical from speaking. So y'all need to book her. And this is the one little tip I'm going to leave with men and women out there. Because again, it's all about that balance. And I see this so much, especially with a lot of my speaker counterparts, where if you learn to live below your means, you can free yourself up to have more time. And that's how I'm able to be stay-at-home dad mode. That's how we're still able to do stuff. Yes, we're not living lavishly, but what's more lavish than having time to do stuff? What's more lavish than that? So definitely look at downsizing your finances, because so many times we have the money and then we just splurge it on silly things. But if you just 50, 30, 20, take those percentages, break it down, wants, needs, and savings, you can start to free up some time so you can be with your little one. You can help out and do all that stuff and see if we survive the recession, or we're going to go crazy and start eating each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it went dark. It went dark. That'll be on our trigger episodes. Like, when was the first time you had human flesh?
Maybe Jason can edit that out.
Yeah. Jason, put some voiceovers and there are people screaming. Ah!
Diana, you guys get it all on here, don't you?
We do. This is great. Wow, this is so great. Thank you so much for our subscribers. For those that haven't subscribed, please go to our website and subscribe to our Life in Between podcast.com. And we're also on Apple and Spotify. And am I missing anything else, Patrick?
We're kind of on YouTube, but I haven't really edited the videos to throw them in there. So if you go to YouTube, you can see our pictures. That's about it.
Great. And then our social media handles out there. We are on other social media handles so you can follow us. But we're just right now new. We're updating and all that. So have patience with us, everybody. We're going to be continuing more guests coming on, but we will definitely have Rachel coming back. Because, woohoo. Yeah.
The police. Whoop, whoop. The sound of the beast. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you again for your time and for the conversation.
Thank you.
By you. Yeah.
Thank
Back
you.
to the bathroom. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful edition of the podcast. I'm going to the bathroom. We're all sweaty in here because of the lights and it's a small room.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.